June 4th, 2020 marked both the 100-year anniversary and the expiration of the Treaty of Trianon, which of course was the post-World War I treaty signed by Hungary that saw the sacrifice of two-thirds of its territory. Now, of course, during the war it was in a union with Austria, hence Austria-Hungary, but still held liable for its role in the war, being considered equal to the Austrians, and saw a separate peace treaty from that of Austria. Of course, the treaty was named for the Trianon Palace in France, where it was signed in 1920. And just to give a brief look, this is the loss of territory compared to the ethnic makeup of each region, each part of Hungary, the Kingdom of Hungary, according to the 1910 census of Austria-Hungary. And the light green, of course, the modern-day Hungarian territory. The red is the Hungarians outside the border, at least at the time. And to this day, there are still hundreds of thousands of Hungarians outside of Hungary's borders, mainly in modern-day Slovakia and Romania, which has led to quite a bit of ethnic conflict. And the reason I bring all of this up is, number one, I apologize we haven't been able to get an episode of the War Report out in a couple weeks. There's been some scheduling conflicts. We're going to go further in depth on this, but I wanted to address a separate video to it where I want to read Orban's speech from this Saturday, June 6th. And it's pretty powerful, which I want to go through, read the English translation, and give some of my thoughts on it as we go. So we will pull that up in a second, and I will be right back. And beginning, we know the stations. We know the painful stations of the Hungarian cavalry. Yet we walk in the way of the cross again. We seek remedy, comfort, hope, and encouragement. We know that we can only get it at the end of the way. Only here, and so we rise above the pain. We need to climb to a place where everyone is enlightened and everything makes sense. We need to climb to a place where we can see the future. That is why we are here today. For Hungarians, the horizon of history lies a millennial height. From this height, you can look around. From this height, you can see far. Kassa to the right, Satamarzeneti to the other side, and behind us, Mukans. I apologize for the Hungarian pronunciation if I have any Hungarians watching this. I will link, of course, the full transcription for any of you interested in reading this, but I'm going to do my best with the pronunciations. We see hundreds of wandering tribes of the Great Steppe disappear and perish into the dust of history. We see that the Hungarians have neither disappeared nor perished, but have established our homeland in the ring of Latin, Germanic, and Slavic peoples, preserving our unique quality. We opened our hearts to Christianity, heard the word of God, heeded it, and made the foundation of our state. As is written, remember that all men are born in the same state, that nothing lifts you up, only humility, and nothing pulls you down, only pride and hatred. Our country standing on the foundation to this day. We fended off the attacks of the Western empires, one after another. We recovered from the devastating blows of the Eastern pagans. We did what other peoples of the steppes could not. We fought, we organized, we adapted, we kept our place in Europe. Pretty powerful stuff so far, if I do say so myself. For 400 years, the time equivalent of 4 trianons, Hungary was a strong and independent state. Then, for 300 years, for 3 trianons, we fought the Ottoman Empire, deep down on the Balkans, then at our southern ends, and finally in the heart of the Carpathian Basin. Although Buda was in Turkish hands for a time, 1.5 trianons, they could not march through us. Then, 200 years, 2 trianons after the failed uprising and freedom fights, we entered the gates of the 20th century as a partner nation of a great European empire. Dear ladies and gentlemen, although hundreds of thousands of Hungarians fell on the battlefields over the century, the whole world could see that neither the bullet nor the sword could break the Hungarian nation. Even if we are struck down, we stand up again and again. We just came by the square of Hungarian mothers. In the Hungarian cavalry, women have a special place. This is rightly so because women have always made up for our losses. At times, they gave soldiers to defend the nation. At other times, they gave army nation-building craftsmen to our country. They always gave what we needed. We owe it to our women that the art of survival and nation-building is in our genes. We owe it to them that we are the European champion in survival. Glory to the Hungarian women. Dear commemorators, we did not become a German province, nor a Turkish vilayet, nor a Soviet republic. The indelible evidence, churches and cathedrals, city and town squares, still stand everywhere today. They proclaim that we Hungarians are a great culture-building and state-organizing nation. Dear commemorators. Finally, For 1,000-year-old historical Hungary was stabbed in the back by the conspiracies in Budapest. His armies was paralyzed and disbanded, and only the statesmen capable of rescuing the nation were assassinated. The country was handed over to our enemies, the government of the Bolsheviks. The West raped the 1,000-year-old borders of Hungary and history of Central Europe. They forced us to live between indefensible borders and deprived us of our national treasures and separated us from our resources and made a death row of our country. Central Europe was redrawn without moral concerns, just as the borders of Africa and the Middle East were drawn. We will never forget that they did this. And when we thought neither the arrogant French and British nor the hypocritical American Empire could sink deeper than this, they still could do so. After World War II, we were thrown to the communists without heartache. Their war to the Poles, the Czechs, the Slovaks was the same as our punishment. May this be an eternal lesson to the peoples of Central Europe. Dear ladies and gentlemen, there have been many who have wished to bury Hungary. There were those who want to deprive Germans of an ally. There were those who wanted revenge on the Habsburgs. There were those who were driven by profit, and there were those who hated the Hungarians. They clung together to make us disappear from the face of the earth. But we are a stubborn people, and we never willingly attended our own funeral. Our great-grandfathers didn't give up either. They did not kneel or ask for mercy, very timely. We stayed on our feet and endured. We endured the wagon towns, the Nazi camps, the Soviet gulags, the deportations, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Ceausescu. Today there's no Czechoslovakia, or Yugoslavia, nor a Soviet Union. There is no British or French Empire. What's left of them is now twisting in the multicultural grip of their vindictive colonies. Even the greatest cannot avoid the justice of history. And just as it is true that what belongs together will grow together, it is also true what does not belong together falls apart. They said, well 100 years ago, there will be a funeral for those who wanted to put us in the grave. We Hungarians, on the other hand, will remain, no matter how the wind turns. We remain because we are at home. We are at home, therefore we will remain. Let's see. Hungarians are contracting, expanding like the human heart. But we have been living here for 1,000 years, and 100 years of our great state's founder chose our place. We defend the Carpathian Basin with dignity, and which is also our mission. Every new Hungarian child is a new guard post. We do not cut, torment, or sell, but keep the Carpathian Basin. We need to live with self-confidence and an attitude of a nation that knows how to give more to the world than it has received from it. Our performance entitled us to continue our history. And today, we also need to know that we have worse borders, yet we are here. Dear commemorators, instead of Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, we have Slovaks, Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs. We are happy to build a common future with Slovakia, Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia, which are proud of their national identity. History has given us a chance, perhaps the last, for the peoples of Central Europe to open a new era, to defend themselves against the dangers of West and East, and to merge together. In the last 10 years, we have proved to our neighbors the vitality of the Hungarian national fragments add up. It is good not only for us, but also for them. Only the state has borders. The nation does not. This is the law. Some understood this, some have not. To those who have yet to understand, it would do better to hurry because they are running out of time. Dear ladies and gentlemen, for 1,000 years of history behind us, we transcend the limits here and now. We see Bratislav and Poznany, and Cluj and Kolosovar. We see it because we look at the world in the Hungarian way. We see the homeland high up, but we also see it under the blades of grass. If you see Hungarian, you accept Slovaks will be Slovaks, and Romanians will be Romanians. We see it in our neighbors, what separates us, but also what connects us. He who looks at the world in Hungarian sees through the eyes of St. Stephen. To see the 21st century through the eyes of St. Stephen means that we want to make the Carpathian Basin great together with the peoples who live with us. Today, we have once again become the most populous country of the Carpathian Basin. We haven't been this strong in 100 years. We are building bridges and railways down to Belgrade and highways to Kassa. Our political, spiritual, economic, and cultural gravitational force is growing day by day. The return of Hungarians has begun. Compared to Western Europe, we are an island of peace and security, and to keep it that way, the new Hungarian army is also being built apace. Strength comes with responsibility, and we are aware of the weight of our responsibilities. The 100 years of quarantine after Trianon, 100 years of solitude is over. It is uplifting that we have allies again, that we have good neighbors, and that we can prepare for the future together. Dear commemorators, this is not a single nation in the world which has endured such a century, but we are stubborn, tough, and resourceful. Therefore, we have not endured it, but are winning again. Therefore, we express our heartfelt gratitude and highest appreciation to our separated national communities for a century of endurance and loyalty to the Hungarian nation and to their homeland. Only one walks his own cavalry can become a great nation. Who knows the ways of hardship? Who can stand the test? He who understands that truth is worth little without power. History is not merciful. It does not forgive weakness. If we are not up to the task, we are lost. If we listen to the kind-hearted, we are lost. If we give in to forces of disintegration, we are lost. Hungarians can never afford the luxury of weakness again. We can only have what we can protect. This is the law, and this is our destiny. Therefore, for us, every match goes on until we win. That is why the history of Hungarians was not over at Mokacs, Vilagos, or Trianon. That is why all the stones of St. Stephen's crown will shine once again. Dear commemorators, the next decade will not be about eclipses and losses, but about prosperity and nation building. The world is changing. The changes are tectonic. The United States is no longer alone on the throne of the world. Eurasia is rebuilding with full throttle. The frames of the European Union are crackling, and now it hopes to save itself with a salto mortale. The ground is trembling under the feet of our eastern neighbors. The Balkans is also full of questions to be answered. A new world order is being born. In our world, in our lives, great changes are banging on our gates. We have seen our losses as irresistible setbacks for centuries. In the last 100 years as well. In the absence of our own strength, we expected a wonderful rescue army to come from the fogs of legends, which would change the fate of Hungarians. Let us look at the history of the past 100 years. Let us understand the depths of change of the last 10 years. Let us not be afraid of what we can see. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Yes, there are those reversing the fate of Hungary. We can only hope that our generation, the fourth generation after Trianon, can fulfill our mission and take Hungary all the way to the gates of victory. But it is a decisive battle that must be fought by the generation following us, the fifth generation after Trianon. They must take the final steps as is written. Gather your strength, and first of all, start with the simplest thing. Come together, to grow in a tremendous way, to somehow approach God who is infinite. It will not be easy, it will not be simple, but it will all be worth it. Great times are ahead of you. Get ready and prepare every day. Hungary before else, God above all. Go Hungary, go Hungarians. Well, hot damn, that was, just reading that, not even hearing him give that speech, which I imagine, especially for any Hungarian speakers out there, it was probably rousing to hear it in the original language given by Orban himself. But I want you to imagine for a minute any Western leader giving a speech 1/10 of that. Imagine Trump giving a speech 1/20th of that. Just 5% of that. I would be over the moon. And look, frankly, we've gone on this at length in the show, but what Orban is doing is, frankly, building a civilizational identity. He's used nationalism to great gain, but he realized it does not stop at nationalism. He has helped to recultivate the Hungarian identity, as it were, that the Hungarians are a nation, as I'm sure you've heard that speech. But he also talks about his neighbors to the east, to the south, to the west, and talks about how they must come together to form a united future. Now, of course, not at the expense of their national identities, but he has a vision for the future beyond just these small post-imperial, post-communist borders, which is a problem you see in many other former communist states, many other Eastern European states, post-Soviet states, that they're content with what they have. They're content being vassals of other empires. Now, in this era, it's the European Union and the American Empire. The next era, who knows? It may be China. But the point stands. It seems like Orban, seems like Hungary, is the only country in what could broadly be called the West. I know you can get in disputes. Is Hungarian Western? Is Central Europe Western? Blah 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 blah. Point stands is we're seeing something monumental in the fact that a leader, any leader, would give a speech to that degree. I don't know. It makes me hopeful for the future that there might be something else out there beyond what we're seeing now, and I hope other countries follow suit. I hope Poland takes a harder stance than they have in the past. I hope the other neighboring countries of Central Europe, of Hungary, take a harder stance. And honestly, I'll get into this more on the show whenever we do it, but I think Orban's next big move is he's probably going to move to bring the ethnic Hungarians outside of Hungary home. Now, despite all the jokes, despite his, you know, part of me that kind of wants to happen, I doubt he's going to march in and annex the former territories of the Kingdom of Hungary. But again, there's about, what, 500,000 Hungarians in Romania. I mean, Hungary's been looking to boost its population through birth rates, and now they've been pushing, of course, Hungary to take in more migrants. Well, right there, that's an immigrant population. But, well, of course, we'll see because it's actual Hungarians. That's where the problem will come in. But point being is, I'm still, I read that speech on Saturday. I'm still blown away, and I am now waiting. I can guarantee you this will happen. It was given on June 6th, which is, of course, the anniversary of D-Day. Hungary, a former Axis power. Once the media picks up on this, however long it takes, whether it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever, they're going to say Hungary's neo-fascist government it stokes the flames of nationalism and uses the commemoration of D-Day, which was the biggest Antifa rally, because that's the narrative they're going with now, which, again, I will get into on the show later this week, but they will use that, and they will try to beat Hungary over the head, being a former Axis power of a war that was fought 70 years ago, just because the day he gave the speech. Now, I don't know whether that was just coincidence, or I don't know whether he timed that right. I mean, he said a new world order is being formed, and we all know the current world order was born after 1945, after the end of World War II, with the, again, broadly American-led order with the Cold War, and post-91, really the American-led order as a whole, but it may have been symbolic on that day, on probably, I would say, the most important day of the American imperial calendar in terms of victory, in terms of American global domination, would be June 6th, would be D-Day. So there may be some more to him giving that speech that day, as I said, but I just felt the need that to share that. Again, I'll link the full thing if you want to read it yourself, since I know again, the Hungarian names are a bit hard to pronounce. It's a bit of a long speech. Or if you want to share it around, because again, that's probably one of the best speeches I've read or heard probably ever. Now I know I'm working with a narrow scope here, but still. So we'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.